Screen.
There we go. Welcome, everybody.
Hi.
Just a reminder for those of you who have not been with us, this is being recorded. So if you're going to say something inappropriate, remember it will be recorded and spread around the world, and we wouldn't want that to happen. We're going to do something a little different tonight. All of the Let Me Introduce You so far have been with just one person. And we decided we were going to do a duo tonight, two lovely ladies. Their paths cross every once in a while, and they go kind of a divergent way once in a while. So I think you'll enjoy this. Welcome to Tori Waner, Amber Carpenter. What we're going to do is we're going to spend a little time with each one of them, and then we're going to kind of bring them back together and show some ways that their paths have kind of crisscrossed over and back. And so I think this will be fun. Tori and Amber, welcome. Glad you could be with us. Thank you. And welcome to all you that are visiting. As you know, we'll get to a point here in about 20 minutes or so. If we can keep these ladies under control, they have an inclination to talk a lot. And so the techie person, Beth, may have to mute them at some point, but hopefully not. And then we'll open it up for you to ask some questions. So welcome. We're going to start with Amber. Amber, you, as I understand it, spent your whole public education career here in Bear Valley. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
Yep. Preschool, kindergarten, all the way till my senior year of high school.
Any super significant people that you recall in all those years wandering around Bear Valley Unified?
Oh my gosh, so many. A couple of them are on this call right now. Beth is one of them. My mom, obviously. Brian Adams, definitely. And I have my voice teacher, Diane Sloan, for about 11 years. And she not only was a voice teacher, but she, I feel like, was also kind of a counselor. Every week you'd go in and I'd sing for like 40 minutes, but then the rest of the time we're just like talking about the week or what's going on in my life. And so that was, huge. So yeah, cool. Tori, obviously Tori and I grew up together,
So here you are, a Big Bear High School graduate.
Yes.
What happens next in your life, for Pete's sake?
Oh my gosh. Well, I joined a music outreach program called the Young Americans, and I joined for, a lot of years. So I went right to Corona, California, which is where the Young Americans headquarters is based. And I did my first year in Corona, and which is called kind of the new kid year. It's like the equivalent of freshman year of college or high school. It's the very first year of Young Americans. And then I became an old kid, which is kind of, there's two different names, new kid and old kid, and that's it. That's all I got. So after my new kid year, I just started touring around the world, and my first tour was in Europe.
And you say this is like a freshman year in college. I mean, do you take classes or do you just sing all day, or what happens?
I wish, that'd be really fun, singing all day. No, we did take classes, and as Young Americans, we go into schools around the world and we teach children performing arts. So music, dance, acting, improvisation, all those things. So as an 18-year-old coming out of high school, I didn't know how to teach. I'm like, I'm a kid myself. I don't know how to, get all of these materials to these children. And so that was a lot of our, classes were teaching fundamentals, children's psychology, like those things we had to learn. And then also, obviously, I had a math class, I had, those classes, but then also I had my tap, my jazz, my ballet, my voice classes, my choral. So I really had like a day off, I think, because then on the weekends we're rehearsing for our new kid show. So, and then, we're just constantly on the go. I didn't have time to get in trouble my first year of college. So I was just always tired.
That implies if you'd had more time, you would have gotten in trouble. Is that what that's telling us?
I don't know. I guess, yeah, I got myself in trouble there. I wouldn't have. Come on.
We'll talk about that later. So you graduated after this freshman year, and off you go. Tell us about where you went and how many countries and how many years, and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my first tour was in Europe, and that was an amazing time. That was in summer of 2011, and was my first tour, and I toured and went on the road until 2016. And in that time, I think I visited like 31 countries in that time. And each tour is about 3.5 months long. So in Europe, you know, I went all over Germany, Holland, Czech Republic, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia. And then on the UK tours, there's England, Ireland, Scotland. I did 2 of those. But then also something that is really fun too, that Tori actually, I'm sure she'll talk about later, we got to do Boyne Highlands Dinner Theater. So instead of teaching, you know, children, we're actually opposite. We're performing nonstop for 2 acts. And also before the beginning of the night, we're servers, which I had never done. I'm very clumsy. If you don't know me, I'm a clumsy person, and I spilled a lot of things on guests. That was not the best thing. But then, so we're servers at the beginning of the night, and then at the end of the night, we do a 2-act show for, you know, all of the audience members, and that's in northern Michigan.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 years in 31 countries. Did that travel ever wear you down or get tired of it? Or,
you know, I never was tired of the traveling. You know, I think what makes Young Americans so special is that we stay with families of these cultures. So in Japan, I would actually stay with families. I wouldn't stay in a hotel. So I really got that sense of connection and that sense of family, even though I wasn't with my mom. You know, I still felt protected and I still felt okay, you know, and I think that was something that I really loved about the Young Americans. I was engulfed in a culture, and I wasn't just a tourist, you know, and so some of these families I still talk to all the time. So if I ever wanted to go to Japan, you know, after this is all over, of course, you know, I'll hop on the phone and just say, hey, Kyo, I'd love to see Tokyo again. Can I come stay? And I'll sleep on her couch, you know? So those connections and that time that I had was really, really special.
and my understanding is you kind of were promoted. You had some different jobs, if you will, with the Young Americans. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, so I was able to company manage 2 different tours. So the first tour that I company managed was Spring Japan in 2014. And then the next one was Europe, summer 2014. So I really, at a young age, at 21, I had this job where I was responsible for 41 individuals. So I took a cast over to Japan, and I was the liaison, you know, for lack of a better word, between the Young Americans and Japan. And we have a company called JMC, which is kind of the company over in Japan that facilitates our workshops and facilitates how many kids are there, the homestays. So I work with that company in Japan to make sure that the kids are fed, that the kids have homes, that they, you know, we're going from one subway, you know, we're in Japan, right? There's no English, you guys, none. Okay, we're trying to hop from train to train, and I'm in charge of 41 people with one other Japanese woman who's helping us, you know? So at 21, I was responsible for 41 people for 3 months. And then the next tour was a little bit different. I didn't have that JMC Japan group. I actually was in charge of facilitating, you know, talking to the contacts, figuring out the times of the workshops, making sure the kids had homes where they were fed. If they were sick, I took them to the doctor. So I had that responsibility at such a young age. And then I got to direct as well. So that one was really fun because I was in charge of everything. And I told the kids what to do, and even the like cast members and the kids. So it was really, really fun.
Cool. So then you now finished a college degree. Tell us a little bit about that. And where did that fit into this whole thing?
After the Young Americans, I went to Concordia University and I finished my degree in communication studies with an emphasis in marketing. And then I also got a minor in musical theater. So I did that. I graduated in May of 2018. And then I started my career after that. So while in college, I was in choir and we did, what was that show? Oh, Secret Garden. So I got to do a lot of really fun musical theater moments there too.
So now you sort of have a real job, I guess I'll call it. Is that true? And could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I do have a real job. Thank you, Phil. I am an account executive at a creative experiential marketing agency. There's a lot of big words in that, but it's basically, we just bring people together. You know, our industry unfortunately got hit immensely right now, but we're bringing virtual events to you. So one of my big accounts is Google and Facebook and Target, and we just help them market their, like Google phones, whatever it is. So we do, from design conferences in New York to 3-day festivals in Chicago, where people actually get to, like I said, experience the goods, so it's very fun. I love it. Our company is called Optimist Inc. And I'm so lucky to be a part of a company that is that. Everything about them is optimistic, and especially right now. So, and I get to work with some of my friends too, which is fun. My old boss at Young Americans was my new boss at Optimist. So that's the connection there.
Yeah, it's an interesting lesson, I think, for all of us. Some of us are a little older and we don't need to worry about it, but you just never know when some of those connections you make are going to pay off. That's a good lesson for young people to remember.
Definitely.
Well, that'll give you a little bit of a sense of Amber. Let's shift gears and talk to Tori a little bit about her past and future. Tori, you're also a Bear Valley Unified School District, your entire public school career, right?
Oh yeah. So I started in Big Bear Elementary School. Beth was one of my teachers. My dad was one of my teachers. I went to the middle school and then to the high school. So done it all.
And you graduated when?
I graduated in 2013.
And off to where did you go when you finished high school?
I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, and I started in a communication studies major, and then I switched over to theater and finished with a theater major and a minor in communication studies, because man, doing theater is so much fun. So that was, that was the conclusion there.
You shared with me a little bit about you changed majors because you were kind of frustrated with the communications thing. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I overemphasize how much I loved my communication studies teachers. So I didn't want to completely switch majors, and so I tried to do a double major and still be able to graduate in 4 years. But I think one of the things I realized was that the lessons that I was reading out of a book in communication studies were skills that I could learn by performing in theater. For example, learning about working together, like group dynamics in a communication studies class, is very similar to the skills that are required to put on a show, because as a director or as a cast member, you have to learn how to work as a group, how to be efficient with your time, how to be kind, even when you're exhausted. So it was a connection that I made early on, just this fact that these skills that I was learning were ones that I would be able to apply, whether in a communication studies classroom or on the stage. And so by being able to make that association, it freed me up to pursue my passion and also know that I was getting a really valuable education.
Were you involved in some productions while you were at San Luis Obispo, and can you share a couple of those?
Yeah, so just like Pitch Perfect, I was in an a cappella group. We weren't as epic as Pitch Perfect, but man, I had so much fun, and that's where like all my friends came from. And so I did that. I also did a lot of the one acts and student written plays, which were student directed. And then I was Schwartzy in the Putnam County Spelling Bee my senior year. So I got to run around stage as like an elementary school kid again. And it was really fun, really awesome.
Were you involved in a singing group there also or not?
Yes. So the a cappella group I mentioned called That's the Key, that was the group I was a part of. And then I also was part of the university choir. So it was very different styles of performing and singing, but I really enjoyed it. And I think that also really pushed me to continue to pursue performing after college.
So now you have the big fancy degree in theater arts, and what do you do?
I joined the Young Americans. Oh yeah.
Surprise.
I know, there's a theme here, but it was really cool because I remember as I was trying to wrestle with whether I should change my degree and pursue theater, Amber actually came and visited my house, and she told me all about her incredible journeys around the world and working with all these kids and just the amount of passion and the amount of giving that the Young Americans did. And so it was at that moment, 2 years into college with 2 years to go, that I decided I'm going to be a Young American. So it was really satisfying being able to graduate with a degree and just have one less thing on my list and then be able to go into the Young Americans. And I really think it's more of a non-traditional path to get your bachelor's degree first and then do the Young Americans. So majority of the students go in like Amber did, straight out of high school. So my perspective about things were a little different, but I think at least for me personally, the way that I pursued the Young Americans and understood it made me appreciate so much more the experience, because I'd gone through college, I'd sat in the classes, and so now I was traveling the world for free essentially, and that was such a blessing. It's such a cool opportunity.
Did you and Amber cross paths while you were in Young Americans?
Not really.
Not really.
Amber,
you didn't travel together or?
So Amber was definitely the one that I called and texted and was like, what do I do now? We're like, how does this work? Or what do I pack for tour? So in that sense, Amber was a huge, huge support system for me. Because regardless of your age, sometimes it's overwhelming to go to Japan for the first time with only one suitcase for 3 months. So I was really grateful that I had Amber as a support system all the way through the program.
And you were with Young Americans how long?
I was with Young Americans for only 3 short years. I did my 1 year, my new kid year of studying, and then I traveled for 2 years. But in those 2 years, I was able to go to 11 different countries. So
Wow.
I'm satisfied.
Amazing. So Tori, I know you've had kind of an interesting week or so in terms of what you kind of thought you were going to do and what isn't going to work now. Can you tell all these nice people what that's all about?
Yeah, so it's with everything that's happened with the virus, my path has changed because originally I was on tour in Japan when they told us that we had to go home. So I ended up in Big Bear a month early, which also a blessing in disguise. So I was waiting to go on tour, my final tour with the Young Americans, which unfortunately also was canceled. So I think that was kind of an opportunity, one, to plug into the community. I've done a lot of work with Big Bear Connected, which is awesome and super fun because I still get to see all my friends over Zoom calls. And then I've also been doing, working for Chirp, doing some virtual bird walks and talks. So it's interesting because as I came home from Japan a month early, I did not anticipate any of this happening, but I'm so grateful that I am. And I'm very excited to say that I'm now a Young American alumni, and so a whole new door is open for me, and so there's a whole new journey ahead. Don't know what it is, but it's going to be great.
So have you got a game plan?
No, of course not. No, okay, well, honestly, I'm still working on that because a lot of things have changed very abruptly, very quickly, but I do have to thank my parents oh so much for allowing me to stay home and buy me groceries in this transition period. So I'm honestly so grateful to be here right now. I don't think it's a forever thing staying in Big Bear, but for the time being, I'm really, really happy to be here working with Big Bear Connected, working with Chirp, and then just spending time with my family.
Cool. Ladies, this performing thing, it's at times almost sounds like a disease. You can't quite get rid of it. Can you speak to that? Is that the attraction? How does that work for you guys?
Yeah. Performing, I feel like it is a disease, but it's the best disease I guess you could have. It's just the feeling that you get when you're on stage with your friends and that connection that you have with your friends and then the audience. As an audience member, it's really cool to witness performers, because oh my gosh, they're in between scenes, they're going backstage and they're having their moment and they're breathing and they're seeing their friends backstage. And, as an audience member, it's so cool to watch performers because, not only as an audience member, you are so blessed to see a performance happen, but what they're feeling, So I want to, as a performer, give the audience that feeling, that, joy, that love, that laughter, whatever it is, I want to give that. So as a performer, I think about what I can give to the audience and how I can make that audience member's day or night, or week, whatever it is.
Tori, can you speak to that a little bit? Tori, can you speak to that a little bit?
About the performing disease? Well, I definitely have it. So just going off what Amber says, I think something that is so unique about performing is it allows you to be one over the top and dramatic, but it also gives you different perspectives. For example, being able to play different characters really allows me to look at life from other points of view. So for example, being in college, I got to be an elementary school kid again. And so just kind of analyzing the world from that perspective, or also trying to empathize with other people in maybe more serious roles. I think that's why it's so infectious, is because it just kind of opens an opportunity up to be able to play as an adult, or to create, or to imagine, and then also to allow the audience member to do the same with you. I think it's a very inviting environment. And so therefore it's one that I've always liked to be in.
Do either one of you still think you would consider trying to make a living as a performer, or are those days behind you, do you think?
As far as making a living, probably not. I would I still perform every now and then with Young Americans. We do the tribute show every February, so I get my performing bug out there. And I sometimes even think about doing like a community theater down here in Orange County. But it's just such a fun hobby that growing up, I never was the competitive person. And that was the thing that I couldn't do in high school when I wanted to. My dream was to go on Broadway. But then when I realized that the auditions and the competitiveness of what it takes, I couldn't do that. And I didn't I was like, it's okay if she got the part, but I tried my hardest and I worked really, really hard, but I didn't have that I want to be better than her. I didn't have that aspect. So that for me just wasn't in it. And so I can still do as a hobby, I'll be in the back row dancing my little heart out. I don't even care, just as long as it, something. So not making a living.
Is that still floating around in your head?
To be honest, yes, 100%. There's just something, as you mentioned, disease or otherwise, that is so captivating about performing. And so now that I'm in this weird limbo, it's a good time to figure out how I want to pursue performing, but I know it's always going to be a huge part of my life, because I think whether I kind of find it as a way to release emotions or express myself differently. So whether it's belting in the shower for my parents to hear, or being able to perform with a live band, I definitely have a checklist of things that I want to do performance related throughout my life, just because I don't ever want to stop.
Amber,
Bill, could I make a comment?
Hang on just a minute, Julie. Okay. Hang on just a minute, okay? Amber talked about this competitive thing that I think probably is inherent in, getting on the stage and making a living that way. Are you competitive like she isn't?
No, I'm really not competitive, in the sense that even though I did 3 sports in college, I really emphasized and enjoyed the teamwork effort as opposed to the competitive part. So again, I think transitioning into performing, I don't know if I have the gusto to be the starving actress in LA, which is again why I really enjoyed working with Young Americans, is because their emphasis on performing was all about giving, and it was all about the priority of the kids, and it was all about the priority of the family. And so in that sense, it was never a competitive environment. It was always a very supportive, encouraging one, which again is why I loved performing with Young Americans, because it's so unique in that way.
Do you have a timeline, Tori? If you're 40 years old and still hoping to be on stage, or have you thought that through at all?
Yeah, if I'm 40 years old and I'm not on stage, then I'll probably redirect myself. But,
That's probably a good idea.
I think so. At some point I gotta, accept the facts. But you're asking me all these hard questions though. I don't know. I really don't, but I think even as an adult, and I hope even as I continue into adulthood, that I never give up on my pursuit of my passion, whether it be through community theater or through small performances. I don't really think there's a timeline on being able to do what I want to do. So maybe I'll be 90 and performing. I'll let you know.
Amber, you're working on a graduate degree. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where that might lead?
Yes, I am working on my master's in counseling ministry at Cal Baptist University, because that is one of my other passions, is just helping people and just like we've said, giving back. And so I have one more semester left, and then I have my long hours that I need to finish. And then my end goal is to be a substance abuse counselor. So that's the end goal there. So yeah, I'm very, very excited. I've loved CBU a lot. It's been very nice.
Cool. Amber, someone told me there was an incident, I think you were a sophomore in high school, involving toilet paper in someone's house. Could you share a little bit about that incident? I'm sure you remember it vividly.
Well, if we're being honest here, Phil, and honesty is the best policy, I remember quite a bit of incidences with toilet paper in high school. So, but I think the one that you're talking to is the one my mom knew about, because I got in trouble, and that was freshman year. I was with Claire Hurd and Alyssa Hurd. So Alyssa was the oldest, and she was the bad influence. We went and toilet papered Ryan McCord's house. And it was my first time. I was a freshman in high school. I was just this little girl. I was innocent. And I went, and then Julie Hurd found out, and it was just, we had to go clean it up the next day. It was just, first, you would think that would like stop me, like I have a fear, but no, there was kind of like a battle between like the girls and the guys of our friend group, and we would do like one time Courtney Faust was driving her little Mazda and she had a sunroof, and Craig Hall was like running behind her car and like jumped over the car into the sunroof, put the car in park, stole the keys, and then we couldn't drive away, and so then he saran wrapped her car because we couldn't drive away. So it was just like a lot of things happened. Mom, you didn't know about that one? There you go. 27 now. Maybe I'll get grounded. I'm not sure. We'll see.
I guess you don't have to worry about that TB thing anymore because there's a shortage of TB, so well, that's the deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Tori, I heard a story about a university class that your grandfather was teaching, and he would tell stories about you in that class. Do you know what that's all about?
Honestly, I have no doubt. I may not know what stories he told, but I can tell a story of when he was subbing for me. Can I tell that story?
Sure.
Okay, so you know the whole fad about like ripped jeans and how that was super trendy, really cool. So my grandpa, dear Al Waner, I think he's on this call, was subbing, and he walked by my desk and he put some change on my desk and he said, "That's for new pants." Because I was wearing ripped jeans. So I'm sure that story ended up in his university class. Is there a specific one you're referring to, Phil?
Well, your dad was telling me that Al, when he was teaching at the university, would oftentimes start his class with Tori stories, and he would share some story. And your dad was in an education conference someplace, and someone he didn't even know found out and came over and said, "Are you Tori's dad? I know as much about her as you do." It was kind of a funny situation.
Oh my gosh, how cute.
Well, I think it's time that we open this up and let some of you nice people out there ask some questions or make some comments about these nice ladies. You can do it through a chat, or if you wave at me or Beth, we'll unmute you. So let's get going. Julie, did you want to make a comment? Go ahead.
To warn you guys that this disease that you have will never, ever go away. Because you remember John, after decades with a day job, even being a manager, when we finally retired to Big Bear and he got to go back on stage and play with you guys, I mean, it was the best chapter of his whole life.
Yeah, it was ours too, Julie. I have so many memories of
Yeah,
John and
great
you.
guy, great guy.
Mm-hmm. Best.
Other thoughts or questions you'd like to ask either one or both of these ladies? Or you can do it, wave at us, or you can chat and we'll pick it up. Anybody?
Uh-oh.
Susie Carpenter, uh-oh.
Well, you're grounded, just so you know. But I'm kind of curious because I've heard so many stories from Amber and Tori. I'm sure you've had as many as well. And it would be difficult to ask you on the spot, but can you share one of those moments that you'll never forget in a different country with a child? Something was an aha moment for you, both of you?
Tori,
I
you
know
want to start?
Lithuania, I know the Syrian kids that came up. I've just heard so many wonderful things of lives that you've touched and the children that have touched you. South Africa. Think about
Tori, you go first.
Okay. So I got a few. This is one I'll pull in my back pocket. But we were in a special needs workshop in Japan. And so the way that these are structured is that we pretty much turn on some music and we dance with these kids. This one specifically had over, I think it was 40 kids in wheelchairs. So you can imagine trying to teach someone in a wheelchair dance. It's not, the intention especially of these workshops is not to, have this huge grand show by the end. It's honestly just to like bring life and joy to these kids. And so this was on my Tohoku tour. And so there's different tours that you go on for about 3 months. This one specifically was in the northern region of Japan that had been devastated by a tsunami in 2011. And so originally the Young Americans went up there to help rebuild, and since then had just been going up to work with the kids and connect with them. So it had been a very emotional tour the entire time, and we were about halfway through, and I connected with this one girl who was nonverbal. She was in a wheelchair, but she gave the biggest hugs. And so right in the middle of one of our dance numbers that we were teaching the kids, she latches onto me, and I have this picture of her holding on to me and me sobbing, because it was one of those moments where I realized, regardless of the language and regardless of you know, the ability of the person just being able to connect physically and to be able to hug and to be able to relate emotionally is phenomenal. So that's always been a breathtaking moment that has been one of my favorites.
Amber, how about you?
I have so many, you guys, but the one that came to my mind first was on my first UK tour. I was in Scotland, and I got to teach a Beauty and the Beast solo. Isn't this amazing? And it's like this super like short portion of like our Disney medley, and it was to this little girl. She was 12, and she was so happy all 3 days, like just in beautiful voice, by the way, too. I sang it one time for her and she had it right away. So like the entire time we were just kind of talking, and I was getting to know her and her family. And she, you know, like I said, just so much joy in this little girl. And we did the show on the third day. And, you know, I was so proud of her. She came and, hugged me after the show, and we just like hugged, and, you know, and then she walked away, and her mom came up to me and started hugging me, and then started crying like with me. And I'm like, oh my God. First of all, I didn't even know it was her mom. This woman is hugging me, crying, not sure why. And she pulls away, and she's like, you have no idea what you did for my daughter. Like, she has a rare blood disease and she only has about a couple months to live. And I had no idea, like I had no clue, you know, that this little girl is on basically her deathbed, and she's full of joy, and she has like, you know, a really rare blood disease that I don't even remember the name of. But and so, you know, what music can do is, you know, there's so many great things, you know, about music, you guys, but that is just something and it brought us together. So there's one of them, but I have so many just like that from all over the world.
Thanks. Beth, I see a chat there. Can you share that with us?
I sure can. So we have a question from Scott Waner for both of you. Can you share an experience where you were in a different country and felt you were far, far outside your comfort zone? Maybe when you were lost or overwhelmed by an experience. Great question.
Amber, you want to go ahead?
Yes. I was in South Africa. This was our very first time as an organization that we were going to South Africa, and we were in townships. So we weren't in, you know, if you guys have been there, it's like extreme difference in, you know, there's shanties and shacks and people that live on the street, and then there's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful homes in the same block. And so that was obviously like, when we got off the plane, we were so excited. We were in the bus just like jamming, you know, so excited that we are the first people that are in South Africa as young Americans. And there's beautiful homes on the right, and then we turn the corner and there's just miles and miles of just shanty homes and shacks and kids without shoes walking around. And it was just like silence hit the bus, that we were now understanding our reason of being here. And I got to stay, my first night we were in Manenberg, which is a township in South Africa, really, really poor, gang filled, and we were staying in homes of this township. And I got to stay in a nursery where my homestay mom, she was an amazing woman, had 5 kids of her own, and started a nursery so that kids, you know, she would see kids walking around the street barefoot, no clothes, and she's like, why are they, you know, because their parents are gang members or their parents were dead or something. So she opened this nursery for these kids, and she had 80 something kids every day that come into this nursery, and her and her friend were the only people that owned it. And it was overwhelming, the amount of just gratefulness that I had for my life, because this woman is opening up her home to 80 something kids every day, and she doesn't have anything. It's not like she has this beautiful home, you know. It was just kind of like a building, a shack. And I was walking the next day. We went back to the school to meet the bus, and I was walking with my bright pink suitcase, by the way, through the Manenberg township, you know, and we finally get to the school, and my homestay mom was like, well, you guys are really brave, you know, walking through the township, you know. And I was like, well, you let us, so what am I gonna do? You know, you let us through the township. And she was like, well, people don't walk, like people don't, you know. And to be frank, myself and then our cast members were the only white people there, you know. So we stood out like a sore thumb, if you could say. But these kids in South Africa just like exuded joy and music, and like dance and music was not even just like a side hobby, it was part of their life, you know. You would just see them dancing and singing, and just, it was what they did. It wasn't just a hobby. So yeah, I felt very far and overwhelmed with just knowing that we needed to be there.
Tori, an experience where you were
Oh, yeah. Okay, so to set the scene, this is my first time going overseas. It was the fall Europe tour. And so we go to Germany, Lithuania, Latvia, and the Netherlands. And so I believe it was in the Netherlands, there's a notorious workshop with, we had over 400 participants. And in the Netherlands, they speak Dutch, and I don't. And so that was really fun because there was, if you think about it, there's 40-ish cast members and 400 Dutch-speaking, I think it was elementary to like adults. So a wide range of ages, and like, if you think of the percentage-wise, we would have 1 young American to about 10 people. So again, this is my second time going on tour, and I just remember standing in the sea of all of these people and just kind of acknowledging the fact that we couldn't communicate over language, but we had to teach them this show in less than 3 days. And so for those unfamiliar with the Young Americans Workshop, what it is about every 3 days we go to a new town and a new area, and we teach them an hour-long performance. And we teach them like singing and choral and dance numbers all in the span of 2 days and perform on the third. So I felt very, very far outside my comfort zone as I'm trying to teach these older Netherlands men how to do a fun little Disney dance routine, and I can't speak a word of English to them. So that was a moment where I again realized that you don't always need to communicate via a language, and it was honestly one of the most satisfying and triumphant feelings to be at the very end of the 3 days and to know that we successfully as a cast of 40 were able to herd essentially and navigate 400 other people, and we all worked collectively and put on this awesome show. So very far from my comfort zone, but huge moment of success.
Cool. Karen Gomez has a question. Beth, can you unmute her? There you go. Karen, please.
Thank you for having these two ladies on. I am a homestay mom of Tori. I homestayed Tori. I'm thinking maybe Amber and I may have crossed paths because I don't know if you ever did anything in Los Alamitos.
I did.
You did. Okay. So Roman did do a Los Alamitos. It is in Los Alamitos School District and has done it since he's 15 now, and he's done it since 4th grade. So you may have encountered. Now, I don't remember you, Amber, as well as I remember Tori, but I just wanted to say, I didn't know if I'm the only homestay mom on this call, but how special it is to have you guys in our homes. And my husband was very concerned about having it the first time, but once he had 2 of them just for a weekend, which was Sophia and Angel, which might be Sophia from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just, he was like, oh, yes, yes. And then there was 2 weeks that we had back-to-back camps.
Oh,
and my husband's like, yes, we'll do all the weeks. And it was like more him. I mean, I loved it and I wanted it from the day one, but I had to have him warm up to it. And it's going to be very sad not to have it in our home in the summer. Sorry.
It's okay.
But you always bring a joy to the house when you come.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Karen.
Thanks for sharing, Karen. Thank you. Some other chat things down there, Beth, is there? Beth, are there some other chat things down there?
Nothing more on the chat just yet. Oh, wait. Yes, I do have a new one. Let me get there. This is for Tori. Talk about your journal and the collection of recipes. And then we have another one from Madison for both of you. When you felt homesick, not if, but when, what kept you grounded?
Okay.
Tori, first, the journal.
Okay. So as I traveled around, I would ask my homestay families to write a little note for me in a homestay journal. So what I can do, it's actually in the other room. So if Amber wants to talk about being homesick, I can go grab my homestay journal and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So it's really cool. So is that?
Yes. Go get it.
I'll be back.
Grab it.
Okay.
All right. Let me see. Let me read this question one more time.
So
when you felt homesick.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
What kept you grounded? Okay. Wow, that's a hard question because I did feel homesick a lot because my mom and I, a lot of you know, are very, very close. And so I was with my mom growing up till I was 18. But as we go on these tours, we are with, like I said, our cast of 40, 40 to 50, people. Those people become our family. And so I would really, lean on my friends who are now my best friends today. I would lean on them and be encouraged by them. And also, thankfully, my mom, and I talked a lot as we were on the road. And I also really leaned into Jesus, and I talked to him and I prayed just to help me stay grounded in that. So, and just the work that I was doing, I knew that it was something that needed to be done. So that's what kept me grounded for sure. So, but yeah, and I love that Tori did a journal, because I started to do a journal and it just got so overwhelming. Honestly, it was like so many, because I did 8 tours or 8 projects in a row and I couldn't keep up with it. And, but I do have some from like my first 3 tours, I think. So that's so cool, Tori. Let's see it.
Tori, are you back?
Yeah, we're back. So this is a homestay journal. For every tour that I did 6 of them. I kept one. And so what I did is, with every family that I was with, I asked them to take a picture of themselves and then write a little message. Since the majority of my travels were international, I had a lot of Japanese. So like, here's a Japanese homestay family, right? So I have no idea what they said, but I hope it's nice. And then on top of that, yeah, we'll see. One day it'll be translated, we'll see. But on top of that, I love cooking. And so I was really introduced and recognized the value of cooking from my grandma TikTok. So she would always bake cookies for us. My mom is an incredible baker and cook as well. So as I began to travel, I started tasting these incredible foods internationally, and I wanted to be able to bring that back home, not only to my family, but to other friends. So as well as asking them for notes, I asked them for recipes. So this is a family that I stayed with in Thailand. They were actually a Japanese family, so that was pretty cool. But if you can see, she gave me 6 different recipes, and she would like pencil them out and draw them, and then she would extend it so you could see the picture. So like they went in. But it was so cool because I have yet to count all of the recipes I have. But on this last tour, I was only there for 2 months, but every single family gave me at least 1 recipe. So my goal is, as well as, performing and all the other things I have to do, my goal is to be able to create an international recipe book, and I'll have the recipe, and then I'll have a little picture of the family, and then kind of a message from them, as just a way for me to commemorate all the travels that I did. And it's funny because Karen actually gave me a recipe for these like really good almond balls. So, I'm going to put that in the book too. But it's just one way for me to bring my passion to cooking, my passion of cooking to the table, but be able to share all of my international travels with everyone else.
Cool. We've got time for maybe a couple of more. It seems like I saw a couple of chats there, Beth. Are there some other ones there?
Yes, I've got one from Heidi Carrillo for both of you. What are some of the favorite roles that you have played, or what are some roles that you've always wanted to play?
That's a very good question, Mrs. Carrillo. I had Miss Carrillo in high school for Spanish. She's the best teacher. Love you.
I think you should answer in Spanish then, Amber.
Oh, right. I should. Can't. Sorry, you were a great teacher. It has nothing to do with how you taught. Well, I would love to play Elle Woods in Legally Blonde. That's like one of my dream roles. And then also Christine Daae from Phantom of the Opera is also one of my dream roles. But a favorite role that I did play in Big Bear was Dorothy, which was very fun. I got to co-play it with Tori, which was super fun as well. And Elena Peavy was our Wicked Witch of the West. I loved that show. That was my senior year of high school. So, it was very bittersweet. So I loved it.
Tori, how about you?
Okay, so I would love to be Fiona in Shrek, the musical, because man, that Janine Tesori who composed it is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I just think that I really embody that non-traditional princess that's kind of rough around the edges, but still loves wearing the pretty dresses. So, I really relate to that character. Also want to meet a dragon, so hope to do that in the play. And then roles that I loved playing, Cats was a huge part of my life when I was younger. I loved playing Annie. Dyed my hair red, don't really recommend that. But again, one of those characters where she's just like, she's she, you know, she's got like the kind of like tattered shirt and whatnot, but she's really just embodies that idea of like hope and just empowering other people. And again, the cast was killer. Also, small role, but super fun to be a clock sprite in the Christmas Carol. And then being the ghost of Christmas Past, I got to fly. So hey, one of my goals came true. So definitely one of my favorite roles.
Cool. All right, we've got time for one more. Is there another chat there, Beth? That looks interesting.
Chat, but I have a question.
Uh-oh.
So I just, because I want to test your memories, and this is for both of you. What is your earliest recollection of being in a cast?
Mine is, I know my mom's like, what are you talking about? I was 3 in Sound of Music, and I don't really remember it too much. Like I don't, you know, I do remember when someone would say like a memory or something, I would remember that. But yeah, I 3 years old, right, Mom? Is that right? Yes.
Cool. Tori, how about you?
I vividly remember the orange feathered butt of being Woodstock and the good man Charlie Brown. So that was awesome. Beth, were you the director, Beth?
Yes.
Yes. So, you know, that's kind of where it all started. But man, my mom and I dyed the tights orange and we dyed the shoes. So these little tiny baby size kids, we dyed them in our kitchen, so they were orange, and then I had this all orange outfit and like orange feathers on my butt. It was a great time. It's a great time to be alive.
Little birdie.
Amber, Tori, thanks for doing this. It's been an interesting evening hearing your travels and your plans for yourselves. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for all of you. Next week, May 19th, Amber Parle is going to be my guest. If you've ever thought about a bucket list, this lady has a bucket list that you will not believe. So I hope you'll join us next Tuesday, 5:30, when I'll introduce you to Miss Amber Parle. Thanks for being with us tonight. Hope you had a good time.
Thank you, guys. See you later.
Bye.